Hey everyone, Case, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Alrighty.
Oh, it's 9:46. 7. Damn. Let's go.
9:47. So it seems like we're about ready to start. I think we've got a quorum here, and Peter, your microphone is working, so I think we're ready to kick off. Um,
Did
Hello,
I say that
everyone, and
loud?
welcome to. Oh, sorry, what's that?
No, nothing. I was just joking. Go.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's AMA. We're doing this a day early, and the topic of today's AMA is the Lamina1 Ecosystem Fund. So this week's AMA is super timely with the announcement, with a couple of announcements that we've had this week. First of all, we announced our first L1 ecosystem projects that are going to be funded by the initiative, Innovation Lab O Studio and Digital Pioneers Legitimate. We also dropped our Metaverse as a Service white paper earlier this week. So obviously, it's all about the builders, baby, and how we're going to support them. So today, I am joined by Lamina1 co-founder and executive chairman Peter Vessenes, and again by CEO Rebecca Barkin. And all of us are on the ground, actually, at Consensus this week, meeting fellow Web3 crypto and Metaverse builders and initiatives as one of this year's projects to watch. But the topic, again, of this week's AMA, we are here to talk about the fund, what it is, how it works, how to get involved as an open metaverse creator, builder, or investor. So yeah, we're super excited to have you here. Anything you guys want to add, Peter or Rebecca, before we dive into some community questions?
Yeah, I'd love to just explain what the heck is the ecosystem fund. Like I was kind of looking through some of the early questions. And I thought, maybe just a little explanation would be helpful. I know there's people kind of from like all walks of life and all levels of experience with this. So I think it'd be nice to explain where our heads are at on it first, if we got time for that.
Totally, go for it. That was actually our first question. So
Like, what is this thing? All right, cool. Um, so uh, maybe the first thing to say is like there are a lot of ways that the chain and the ecosystem can support people. So, you know, like arguably the biggest way is just like building these economic loops that we want into the economy and setting things up so that we have these like better financial outcomes for creators. And excuse me, that's really a matter of just like systems and economic design. But there are also ways we can like directly support. And we have two different programs that we've carved out. One is a grants program. Token grant program is actually something I think that I came up with originally in crypto at the Bitcoin Foundation. It was just like we had Bitcoins and we would give them to people doing interesting things for research. And um, so these token grants are typically really valuable. Now, Bitcoin kind of like started with a mainnet launch in modern terms, and so the Bitcoin Foundation had like liquid tokens to give away that people could sell or hold on to or do whatever they wanted. And so obviously, like, well, we're in test net, Lamina1 tokens don't have any market value, and so grants are like not maybe that helpful economically for people who want to like eat and live off their work and stuff. So that said, we're super committed to the grant program, and I think um, uh, if you're considering like, do I want to apply to the fund or do I want to ask for a grant? I think in general, the grants are going to be aimed at stuff that we think is public good. So like maybe there could be an economic story for people making that. They might want to make more money on something they're doing, but like we just see like rather than needing to meet kind of like an investment committee set of criteria, instead it's something that we're just like, this would be cool if it existed, it'd be awesome if it existed. um and we're hoping, as you know, as we roll towards mainnet, like we'll be able to get that grant program up and running in a way that's like actually material for people. So that's the grants. The ecosystem fund is a venture fund, and I'm going to be boring to those of you who have invested in venture funds and maybe say something interesting to those who haven't. But, you know, fundamentally a venture fund takes money, it gives it to companies and expects some stock back or some other kind of tokens. And eventually the hope is that the fund will make money doing that. Where does the fund get that money? It gets it from its investors, who are also called LPs or limited partners. So, and why do the people running the fund do it? A lot of possible reasons, but one in particular is that they'll like make money alongside the limited partners, and usually in most cases, and in the Leaf case, it's an 80-20 split. So the limited partners will make 80%. After they get their money back, they'll make 80% of what's on top, and then the general partners will take the 20%. So venture companies are pretty speculative, and it's a fairly, even though it's like written a lot about globally, and of course on the West Coast, if you're from the West Coast of the US, VCs are kind of like lionized as these amazing people. They vary in real life, obviously, but the it's not actually an easy form of investing. And the reason is that the companies that are applying for venture capital are typically like really early stage. They just have an idea, they're just getting started, they might have a little bit of revenues. They're not like the sort of check you'd write to a company that's like rolling, making money, and about to go do something. And so these funds tend to have a long time horizon. And on the flip side, venture capitalists usually get a kind of cheap price to buy the stock, and so they kind of like hope to make it up in terms of like great returns on some projects. So what particularly is an ecosystem fund? Ecosystem funds are kind of financial idea and innovation around these chains, which is to say that like maybe the best way to say it is that a blockchain is really like a multi-sided marketplace. Like we're bringing a lot of different kinds of people and participants together, and which we've already done. You guys are awesome. I mean, the Lamina community is huge, and I think like by far the best community, modern layer one community out there. In particular, there's so many creators, project people, people doing stuff, and so we have this really, really rich community. The Ecosystems Fund's job is to like encourage and help build the businesses and other things that will keep growing that community and bringing it together. So it has a venture fund mandate, like it's got to go write checks. The checks it writes, we have to believe we're going to make money at. And at the same time, we're also like writing the stuff we think will help the ecosystem. So that's kind of the idea. Now, usually a venture fund is raised as follows. You go to a bunch of limited partners, LPs, and you're like, sir, I would dearly like to write a lot of checks, and could you please commit, I don't know, 100,000, 500,000, $1 million. They say, okay, sounds good. I like your ideas. I like your track record. Over what time period will you write those checks? And most US venture funds are so-called 7+2 funds. And what that means is that in the first 7 years, they're going to write their checks. And in the last 2, they're going to try and close out the fund and get their company sold and so on. In those first 7 years, you spend like the first 2 or 3 of a 7+2 fund writing your initial check. So you kind of like, you take about half the money investors have committed, you go spread your bets on the stuff you love. And then the second 3 years or so, you've reserved half the money to kind of like write in the winners. So because you usually get like rights to reinvest. And so some percent of those will work out. And then you put like a lot more money into those. And that's kind of that's sort of the typical venture fund MO. We chose not to do that for the LAMINA1 Ecosystem Fund for a couple of reasons. One, I just kind of wanted to run an experiment with you guys, and the experiment that I thought would like suit us the best and be most sort of like culturally consonant with Lamina would be like, hey, let's just do this together, and we'll just kind of like start small and see how we go. And so we chose to work with AngelList, which has a thing called a rolling fund. And the rolling funds work a little bit differently than a normal venture fund. And basically they're like quarter by quarter. So people come in, they commit a certain amount of money for a year. I think our minimum is like really little. It's like $5,000 right now, maybe. And those $5,000 are split up into 4 quarterly commitments. So you're like, yep, for the next 4 quarters, I'll write $1,250. And then we take and deploy all that money in that given quarter. And only people who put in money in that quarter will get kind of own the stock of the companies that we're investing in that quarter. And so I thought that was fun. There is game playing in the ecosystem fund world where like LPs commit to a large amount of money, but then they don't let the investors actually write it. So you get like a big press release and there's a giant amount deployed, and then but it's not really deployed. It's just like for being in the news. So I thought like this is kind of the opposite. Like we'll write every month and or every quarter, and we'll like get our feet wet in doing it. And we're learning some things. Like one of which is that it's just kind of a slow start, um, and that's interesting. And like another one is that, and as you guys will learn, if you want to come in, if you're accredited investor, you can come in at any time. And there's like cutoffs per quarter to make sure you're in the quarter. And so we are like in this early process of like, we've announced some companies, we negotiated to invest in more companies. We don't know exactly how much money we're going to have quarter on quarter. And so we got to kind of like just like build this up over time. And that means we just are going to keep talking to everybody about what we're doing and so on. So that's like a whirlwind tour through VC, the ecosystem fund, and so on. Casey, did anything I say sound super dumb or confusing or need some explication?
Not at all. This is super, super interesting and awesome context for the community, I think. I think our most common question was, what is the L1 Ecosystem Fund? What is this channel for? We've had it up for a couple of months now, and I think just being able to kind of hear it from you, from the person who conceived it, and why it's different and unique from other ecosystem funds out there, I think is really, really cool. I've been taking notes myself, I will say. I definitely want to move forward to some of the other questions though. So another one of our biggest questions in the feed over the last couple of months have been, how do I apply to the fund as a builder? We've got a ton of people building really interesting projects. What's the best way for them to sort of show us their stuff and get involved?
Yeah, I mean, so there are links right up on the LAMINA1 homepage to apply. And we'll put that someone will put that in the chat while I'm talking here. But basically you go and you fill out a form and get in touch. I know there have been questions like, do you read what comes in? And the answer is yeah, totally. We do. We read everything that comes in. Because we're in this early stage, we're just like a little, we don't necessarily have all the people that we want. And so we might be a little bit slow, but that's the simplest way. Just come in and apply. And like I was saying, like we may, because we're like just getting started, like we may love you, but not be able to invest in you. And we might also think like it could be a better project for a grant proposal. And we'll happily talk to you about that. We do like to also connect up projects because like sometimes we tend to know a lot about what other people are doing. And so it's great to come in and tell us what you're working on, even if you're like not exactly sure it's going to work. You might want some advice. You might want us to know what's up. And then like and if you tell us what you need, like, of course, most projects are like, we need money, which is fine. But there's also oftentimes like you might need a certain person or a connection or something like that. And we like to know that too, so we can help whether or not we're going to write a check. I want to say too, I think I'm pushing, I don't know if I'm going to get it, but I want like a private channel just for Leaf investors, which will be maybe the most exclusive channel on the LAMINA1 Discord. I'm hoping. I'm going to see if I can get it done.
On the flip side, Mrs. Lee asks, how can I become a LAMINA1 Ecosystem Fund investor?
Yeah, so there we at that same link, that Leaf link, there is an application process. So you go to that link and you click for investors. You follow a couple questions and then we'll get in touch with you, and then you sign up on AngelList. So it's quite simple. It's really fast.
Awesome. Kawa asks, can you tell me about a few projects that plan to participate in the L1 Ecosystem Fund? So I think Rebecca's going to take this question, but obviously we made a big announcements this week that we are going to be funding our first 2 projects. So yeah, people are interested. Who are they? Why were they selected? And what's the deal with our first 2 funded projects?
Yeah, hi everyone. So this is a super exciting moment for us. There was a lot of interest in really the first tranche, the first real wave here. We had over 60 applications just in Q1, just as we announced it. And just this morning, we announced our first 2 investments. So one of those is Krista Kim's Zero.xyz, which is co-founded not only by metaverse and NFT artist Krista Kim, who you guys may know, and Academy Award nominated and Emmy winning producer Peter Martin. So you may know Krista from her touring exhibitions. She's a really well-known artist. She did the Mars House, so the first ever very artful NFT home, which actually made the cover of Vogue Hong Kong and sold on Super Rare for over 500,000. She's also Vogue Singapore's metaverse editor. And these days, we were really inspired by her current project, which is focused on developing the future of interoperable, immersive experiences and kind of these hyper-realistic digital avatars to help us realize this vision that we talk about all the time of this kind of really high fidelity, generally for the good of our broader mental health and interoperable that we think will really allow for like the highest level of innovation and creative production possible, and they're really committed to that level of fidelity. So what we love about it, is that Krista has always been committed to not just really high design, but to human potential, and how to leverage the power of these new technologies like AI and science and art to really promote a much more kind of inclusive and equitable future. So we love this project. We're super happy to be working with Krista and to help forward her work. The other is Legitimate from Calvin Chan. This is Calvin is a Web3 veteran, and he's really building the infrastructure for the next generation of consumer retail applications. So creating this really, really seamless connection, which we've talked about in augmented reality for forever, but he's actually doing it between our physical and digital world and the goods and experiences that we really hope to share between those worlds in a really seamless way. So Legitimate would fall into the fashion category today, I would say, but their NFC tags, which they term the LGT tags, allow creators to really easily connect their physical products, like limited edition drops of certain goods, to customizable digital experiences that are powered by NFTs and Web3, really with no code or blockchain knowledge necessary. We love this project, and to date, Calvin himself has been so scrappy and strong as a leader, so smart and strategic. And he already has partnered with brands like Lee Organics, the Overwatch League, the Avalanche Summit, to authenticate these exclusive collections from some major brands, which I'm not going to talk about on his behalf, but I would say follow along. In case we should drop into the chat some links to Zero.xyz as well as Legitimate, just to give those guys a shout out. But we were from the moment we met Calvin, just super impressed by his depth of knowledge about the field, his depth of knowledge about fashion, and his passion about and commitment really to even helping creators and designers retain value on the secondary market, as well as to tie these kind of limited edition drops and to real experiential type moments in the real world as well. So we couldn't have picked two better starts and for our initial investments, and we're really excited to see what they do on the chain.
I think that digital physical bridge stuff is super interesting. Like, I don't know. I'm excited about both of those, and Chris is just clearly an OG in this space and really well connected. And but I'm also just like a nerd on the stuff Legitimate does. I think like this is this like massively unexplored space of like how are we going to be tying digital representations of things into physical goods and all that stuff. So anyway, I think that's really cool.
Yeah, you make a really good point, because I think like one of the challenges, even with AR in general, was there were so many ideas from the brands and so much enthusiasm from high-end brands about how to do this. You know, when they drop something that's a limited edition, like how do they can they then tie that to an NFT, which then ties to membership and loyalty, exclusive access and programs and events. And this is kind of the missing link. So thrilled to support it.
Cool. Yeah, and we've got more
Yeah,
coming.
it's
Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
no, go ahead. I was just about to say, Phygital is really interesting at Consensus. I was just looking at a talk and they were like, "Don't say Phygital anymore." So I'm interested to see. I'm also huge into the culmination of metaverse and real world experiences. So excited
I
to see
dislike
what we
the
do.
I
sound of the
hate
word
that word. I do.
right
I
now.
do hate it. I do hate it.
Yeah, but I like the idea. It needs a brand.
Totally.
It needs a
I just find
rebrand.
it phonetically offensive. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's a
it's just
personal
like
issue, but
yeah, that'll be good for the transcripts. We don't like to say Phygital. Okay,
Um,
Casey, hit us. What do we got?
yeah, so next one is from Kawa, who asks, is this fund only going to invest in projects that'll launch on Lamina1 in the future?
Yeah, um, so allow me to be discursive for a second. We most chains that have ecosystem funds view it as a way to like buy projects onto their chain. And so they, you know, most of the time with these ecosystem funds, the venture partner running it will kind of have like a sense of their own power vis-a-vis the company. And if they think they're really powerful and the company really needs money, they'll be like, you have to only launch with us, or we won't write you a check. And then if it's the other way around, they'll be like, good sir, we just want you to take our capital, and be friends. So we're like, we're in a little bit of a different space, which is to say, like, we have a huge amount of social capital, meaning like this is where the world wants to be for open metaverse stuff, full stop. And so people, most funds are not sitting on like just on the after announcement like 60, 100 applications to finance. They have to go find their deal flow. Um, so far it just hasn't been a problem because people we're talking to like want to work with us and they want to team up with us. And I think as we go, we'll see. I mean, the like we at least want there to be a use case, like it's got to be metaverse related, and there's got to be like a use case for all the tech Lamina's building, I think I would say. But past that, again, I would, if you've got a cool project, we're happy to talk to you. I think you'll like us. And most of these projects actually need features out of a layer one that aren't being built elsewhere anyway, and so they're often like, hey, you know, one of the conversations we've been getting into is like, we need X, Y, or Z, which is all the kind of the stuff on our roadmap. And so, yeah, so far it hasn't been a major issue.
Next up, we have a question from Constantine who asks, I don't meet the capital requirement for a quote unquote accredited investor, but I can afford to pay the minimum. I'm also outside of the US. Is that okay?
Okay, so it's perfectly great, Constantine. Your life sounds just fine. Uh, um, that said, for a U.S. venture fund, there are really strict rules, and we can only take people who meet the U.S. definitions of accredited investors for the ecosystem fund. I have I'll just have a slight political moment and say it's a complicated issue. Like, um, on the one hand, it can just feel like these rules just keep normal people out and only let rich people get richer. On the other hand, I maybe told you earlier, it could be 7 to 9 years to see any returns, and some funds don't return capital. So it's fundamentally like a risk. It's a pretty risky asset class, this venture investing. And so, you know, that said, I don't think the U.S. regulatory on it is like really that fair to the non-wealthy, but like we follow the rules. There are some pretty interesting companies out there kind of like working on expanding crowdfunding rules into this space. And we're talking to them because I think we would like something that we feel like is safe for people who, like you shouldn't put any money into something like this ecosystem fund that you can't afford to lose because it's just super risky. But um, but probably everybody could afford to risk a little tiny bit, and right now that's pretty hard to do. Like as an example, we're only allowed to take 99 accredited investors at the Ecosystem Fund. There's another like ultra rich category called a qualified purchaser, and we can take as many as we want of the QPs. But even like that cutoff, Constantine, you're worried about. There's another cutoff above it that's like actually who US SEC really only wants to have access to venture funds, and accredited is like a compromise. And so, but there's some motion there, and I think probably by the fall we will. I hope be able to like expand stuff, but for now it's just, you know, we gotta stick with our rules.
Am I correct in the assumption, though, that you don't have to be physically in the US, but you just have to meet the US accreditation standards?
Yeah, that's right. And it's just a simple form you fill out. So you're like, yep, I meet the rules, and that's that. And you could be anywhere in the world to invest in the ecosystem fund, well, except for like you know, OFAC limited countries.
Awesome. Alex in Oslo asks, before investing our time to write the grant and your time to read it, we want to understand what's needed by the community and your priorities. The original Lamina1 white paper offered several ways to go. In other words, what are you looking for? And as a quick follow-up question, they asked, is it required that projects that submit for, you know, grants or L1 Ecosystem Fund funding are open source?
Okay, I got distracted. Say that again. Sorry.
All right, question one is basically, in short, what are you guys looking for in terms of L1 Ecosystem Fund projects? I mean, you know, obviously we kind of laid out a bunch of things that we're exploring and interested in the Lamina1 white paper, but yeah, people are asking like, what are you looking for? How can I make myself stand out?
Yeah, and that's a good question. And I'm gonna tee this up for Rebecca to talk a little bit about. So we have partners with different focus areas. Like Jessica Toon is the director of the Pacific Northwest Grammys. So there's a bunch of music connectivity in her life. She's actually was going to be here, but she's at Congress today doing some advocacy for musicians. Rebecca's got her specialties. Neil obviously has his interests, and so like so every partner is going to have kind of like a different set of stuff they're interested in. Christine, I would say broadly, is like interested in early stage startups, deep tech. I'll say if you think we might be interested, you should get in touch with us. Um, I have pushed hardest for writing checks to companies that are going to have large audiences, because I think that as we pull these large audiences in, it's going to like really benefit the community as a whole and the token holders as a whole. And so that's like my personal spin on it. But like there's, you know, at the end of the day, these need to be like things that we think can make money, because we're investing, we're not just giving away money or granting. And ideally they should like roll with one of the partners' areas of interest, I would say. What do you got, Rebecca?
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the things that's great about this process too is that, you know, as Peter hinted at, like we have so many different perspectives, and so we have some really good, healthy debates about that balance of how do we select projects that really model out what we think is good in the world and what we want to see in the world, in terms of quality of project, of design, the creator, you know, the actual content itself, as well as the tooling that helps support making it much easier for creators to make things in general. There's the perspective of what's going to bring volume to the community, as Peter said, because that's also really important to strengthening the community and giving you guys as broad of an audience as possible to help really shake up the model around, you know, alternative methods of distribution and discoverability. But we are taking a pretty broad approach to what's necessary to make for a really rich open metaverse. And I really would encourage, I know it's like weekend reading, but I would definitely encourage everyone to take a look at the Metaverse as a Service white paper, because it does touch a lot of these different areas, like what's really needed to make this ecosystem thrive. And we are looking at a range of, you know, tooling projects, as well as creative, diverse, well-designed, meaning they understand mechanics and loops and things that are going to keep communities coming back and really holding value. NFT projects across games, fashion, music, and art, emergent AI, DeFi, GameFi, social projects, virtual machines, layer two
Everything.
protocols. Yeah, I mean, I could go on, but that Metaverse as a Service really addresses like these are the areas that it's going to take to make an open metaverse thrive. So anything that falls within that, we will definitely take a look at and consider.
I'll put out a pitch. I want to say you're like a real fun type. You're like, hey, this weekend, read the white paper. That's amazing.
I know, guys, I
Um,
have made a joke about it. It's
you're a nerd. It's okay. We like you. The what I was gonna say though is I am super personally interested in identity stuff. And I'll caveat that and say like most people who do identity, it somehow like breaks their brain and they become crazy and it becomes this like boil the ocean problem. And so we laid out like a simpler path on the in our identity like light paper, and anybody who wanted to work on that, like I will move heaven and earth to help you however we can. I just think it's super important. So that's my pitch.
Amazing. I was
Also,
actually
it doesn't
just
have to be
talking to
open source.
engineering. I was just talking to engineering about kicking off an identity week via our quest sometime soon. So you're psychically in sync with what the team is super focused on right now too.
Amazing.
Next question we have from another anonymous user is asking, how many projects are you planning to invest in 2023?
So that depends a lot on how much investment we get. Like I would say optimal check size for us with the companies we're talking to is going to be between 100 and $500,000. We're going to be like early stage. Um, we started with less than that this quarter, and so we're writing like some smaller checks, and then we made a couple offers that we either got a yes on, but it's going to push, or we just couldn't quite get there. So I think like we'll write as many as we can. And one of the things about these rolling funds is they're just a snapshot of like what's happening each quarter, and so you kind of layer them on over time. So, but yeah, I think we if you kind of do that math out, I think if we're writing to 10 or 20 projects a quarter, I'll be super happy by the end of the year. And that's really just a matter of getting investors in. I think we'll have the deal flow as we grow.
I've got a next question from Jackal Girl, and you kind of addressed this up top, Peter, but I just want to shout it out because Jackal Girl has asked this like multiple times on the L1 Ecosystem Fund channel, who asks, once the mainnet is live, will it be possible to send funds to the ecosystem for grants via token contract? So for example, if I figure out a project to do, can I have the project itself drip a residual into the fund whenever it does the thing, whatever that thing is? Deco Girl is also sort of asking about, is there a way, or are we considering a way for the community to be able to sort of like pool their funds in a safe way to support this kind of fund or projects on Lamina1?
Yeah, totally. So, hey, I love that. That's so cool. And I'm into it. So that's the first thing to say. Probably, you won't be able to directly. Like when I first read that question, I was like imagining it was like, hey, this is how returns will work. Like I'll have some tokenized on-chain business, and then like dividends will go out, and that would be the thing coming back to the fund. If we did invest in something that was like the returns model, we'd figure it out, and the fund would make like a Lamina address to get the returns back. So that wouldn't be like disqualifying if that's the plan. If the other one is like, hey, can I go like build something that's gonna just like micro shares invest in the ecosystem fund over time, that we can't support because you have to like sign these contracts and make your capital calls. But I love the idea of just collective action, like people doing this online. Like, there's nothing stopping people from pulling together something. Maybe you tokenize it, maybe it's just an LLC. That thing, if it meets our criteria for the ecosystem fund, like we can take money from that and invest on behalf of the LLC at the ecosystem fund. So I'm totally cool. Like it's permissionless. People should go do the thing, I think, and it kind of reminds me of the DAO in 2016 was like they were doing this on ETH. There's like it was like 10% of Ethereum before it was hacked. But so with some asterisks there, like the general idea of people like doing this together sounds great. I'm into it.
Awesome. Sumit D024, Echoing Whisper, and Maragung ask, is there an opportunity for L1 community members to invest a smaller amount, e.g. under 5,000 or 2,500? Or if not in this round, is there any scope of a future funding round if needed where the community can participate? I guess that's a pretty similar question to what Jackal Girl asked, but anything else to say on the sort of funding limits that we have set right now?
5K is a minimum, and it just gets back to this 99 accredited investors rule. So like we could set it lower, but that alone would be like 112K a quarter. Just like that's like it's so small that it's too little. I think we just can't really go lower than that. And again, like so I think we probably won't move those, and we're gonna at some point this year fill up on those, and then we won't have more space on those would be my expectation. Is that a full answer, Casey? I don't know if I got everything.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think we've addressed it a couple of times. You keep kind of answering some questions, and I'm, in the doc right now, sort of deleting things that we've already answered. So yeah,
Awesome.
it's perfect. Next up, I have a question from NFT Moon Metaverse, who says, I'm the founder of a project and have filled out the application for participation in the LAMINA1 Ecosystem Fund. So how can I find out the results of the project review?
Yeah, good question. We don't, I don't really know what the post-review plan is. It would be nice to be able to give everybody feedback. I don't think we're just not staffed for that right now. Oh,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I can
go ahead.
fill in too there, Peter. Can you guys hear
So
me?
yeah, so anyway, like it would be great to be able to give everybody that feedback. Again, I'm not sure that we can right this minute, but if you're like, what do I need to know? Like I hear that, and if you drop us a line, we will prioritize just getting you some feedback back.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you. What do you
Yes,
want to say,
you
Rebecca?
should,
I know you want
yeah,
to get in.
you should get, what we're trying to do is at least send an email right off the bat to let you know what stages you're in. So if it, that you've received it or that we've received it, then it's going into review. Christine, who actually runs it, is not actually, I think she's not on the call today, but she runs this process. But there should be the emails that go out to you when you've entered the different stages, as well as when we want to give feedback or we want to set up a call to hear more about it. Just bear with us. We are still a really small team, but we are reviewing everything. I can promise you that. So check your emails, and we can post some more details about that after the call.
Awesome. Sam with 2 M's asks, who would be the best point of contact to talk technical partnerships and give an intro to your team? A lot of hungry builders out there in the community, as you can see.
Yeah, so people want to build, but they need a technical co-founder maybe or something like that. Is that kind of the question?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're more just kind of asking. I mean, I'm happy to take this one in general since I'm kind of the orchestrator of all of our inbound, and I do a lot of the kind of pipeline review and kind of laddering people up. But I think the easiest way to sort of like get on our radar right now is number one, to if you want to apply to the fund, just apply to the fund directly. As Rebecca said, we're reading everything, we're considering it, we're talking it out. And we're definitely taking a look. I think if you're not looking for L1 Ecosystem Fund funding and you just kind of want to get involved or just kind of talk to us about any sort of upcoming ecosystem partnership, the best way to do that, honestly, and we have this written in our white paper, is just to send an email to ecosystem@lamina1.com. From there, our partnerships team, we've got Chief Business Officer Geraldine Pamphile and our VP of Game and Content Partnerships, Jamil Moladina, as well as Chief Product Officer Tony Parisi. They read through field requests. We're always kind of looking for really interesting projects. And then we also have a get involved form on our website for builders where they can kind of tell us about the projects that they're building on Lamina1 from, personal NFT projects all the way up to, big mass consumer experiences. And again, like that stuff is super interesting. I actually personally field a lot of those requests, and those are super interesting to us, not only for, you know, our partnerships team reaching out, but also to kind of get data about the community. You know, what is our community most interested in? Are most people building DeFi versus NFTs versus creative projects? So yeah, we're taking a look at it. It helps us get to know you, and yeah, if we're interested, we'll definitely reach out. And I think, you know, as Lamina1 grows and as our teams grow, we'll be a lot, you know, faster and better and more able to, you know, take on more partnerships as we grow, right?
Okay.
I will say, as the person who personally who gets the inbounds, we've gotten like messages from over like 800 open metaverse builders over the last 4 months. So it's a lot.
Well, I love all that. That's amazing. We should all do just what Casey says anyway. And I just started a new channel because I have admin rights. I don't know what idiot gave me admin rights to this Discord, but I'm using them. And I called it
Oh
Leaf
gosh.
Dating Find a Co-Founder. So like one thing we just can't possibly be in the middle of all these either, because it's a lot. So we want to hear what you're up to. Oh, Jackal Girl's in already, I think. Yes. So um so hop on over there, and I think a lot of times people are just like, I want to do something, I don't know what, and maybe you guys can find each other as well. So
Awesome. Yeah, I love us being a matchmaker for metaverse builders. That's a super good use of this Discord.
we'll
And
see how
okay, so
long
we've got about
that
two.
channel's allowed to last. I don't know. We'll see. Get in while you can, guys.
Another social experiment by co-founder Peter Vessenes, direct and live here. All right, so we've got 2 minutes left, so I'm gonna just throw in one more question from Dead Coders Society, who asks, is there another round of funding coming up?
Yeah, we are just about to close it, actually. So there will be generally like what we're doing right now is raising enough to get to mainnet, and then we will, kind of depending on market, probably do a pre-mainnet funding round, which will let us go out a little broader on the marketing side. So but right now we're actually just like at consensus, and one of the main things we're doing is just like figuring out who exactly we want in, and doing some round construction. Rebecca and I are grinding on that day and night right now. So yeah, so I would expect be announced in the next 2 to 4 weeks. So yeah, so we're doing it, and we've got some exciting new folks to be adding to the investor list. And yeah, although I'll say I'm most excited about BetaNet launching, actually. Frankly, I think that's going to be a big deal. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, that is us. I know we've got a tight schedule. So as we kind of dropped in the chat, more info on Leaf is on the Lamina1 website and our Angel List page. If you have any additional questions, feel free to drop them in that L1 Ecosystem Fund channel. And if you're looking for an angel investor, you know, head to Peter's new channel. We'll be
Oh my
moderating and
God.
checking it out. And I'll let you know how it goes, Peter. Also, just a couple more community reminders before we sign off. This week, our quests are all about the Metaverse as a Service white paper. As Rebecca mentioned in the chat, it is a 50+ page document full of technical and philosophical musings about the Metaverse. So definitely check that out. Read it. Let us know your thoughts and questions. We're going to be hosting an AMA on that next week. We wanted to give the community, you know, time to read it and digest it before we jumped right into questions. And yeah, finally, if you're at consensus, let us know, because we'd love to meet up. I'm personally going to be working the floor, meeting up with a bunch of our partners and metaverse builders. So yeah, if you're there, hit us up on Discord. I'll be sure to find you, and we can, you know, talk metaverse and take some selfies.
We're speaking on Friday.
Yes,
yeah,
we are
Rebecca.
speaking on Friday at 10 a.m. CET as one of CoinDesk's projects to watch. So us and just 18 other companies are being featured this year. We are super excited to do it. And Rebecca is going to be on stage giving a amazing 5-minute pitch on what LAMINA1
Super
is and what we're building.
Exactly. I'm gonna do my best. Speed talk. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. We'll catch you next week. And this will be going up on our YouTube shortly for those who want to listen back.
Thanks
Thanks,
everyone.
Don't forget, Jackal Girl wants a co-founder, so head on over to the Find a Co-founder channel. This is critical for the launch of the chain. It's important. Thanks,
All right.
guys.
Catch
All
you later,
right. Have a
guys.
good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.